This is Ayman Khan here for Boxing Social in association with Betfred here in Stratford with the one and only Adam Morallee. We have the announcement we've been waiting for, Joe Joyce versus Joyce-Parker. Adam, talk me through your reaction.
Yeah, long time coming. I can't believe it's actually finally here. So many false dawns on this one, but literally just got signed like minutes before the press conference.
Adam, can you tell me, there was a bit of back and forth about kind of the protracted talks. From your own point of view, what was it that kind of took its time to get this deal over the line?
It's a challenging one. I mean, well, first of all, I've been talking about it since the end of January. Myself and David Higgins started off the negotiations, then it went through to Frank Warren. At that point, Joyce-Parker didn't have a promoter other than Higgins. So the negotiations were kind of almost in-house, and so I did my part for Joe, Higgins did his part for Parker, and then we got to a stage where they just weren't picking up the phone, they just weren't calling back. We thought the deal was done, and then lo and behold, he signs with Sky, and so we thought it was dead. So it's at that point when he signs with Sky that I think the deal's off. What made it immensely frustrating was that we already had them say, oh, can we just postpone it from July 2nd because Andy Lee's baby's due that week. So we did that, brought in Christian Hammer as an interim fight, and then it all looked like it was for nothing. So we always had September 24th in Manchester booked for this fight, but I really thought we were never going to get to a place where it was Joyce-Parker. You know, we had offers out to all sorts of people in the top 15 on BoxRec, but I'm just delighted that Ben Shalom and George Warren and Frank Warren have managed to find a way through.
Very interesting deal in the sense that Joyce-Parker is a Sky Sports fighter, Joe Joyce is a BT Sports fighter. Groundbreaking in the sense to have this. Just had a battery problem, switching that back over. So picking up with that question, yeah, groundbreaking in a sense because it's not a mandated fight, one that's been negotiated, and we've got there with it, which is a good sign for boxing.
Oh, it's a great sign for boxing. I mean, you're right. Normally, you only get these cross-promotional fights on a purse bid situation. It's not a purse bid situation. It could have got that way, WBO 1 and 2. Could have got to a situation where it was a purse bid for, say, a vacant title or something. But they really both wanted the fight to happen. I think it's great for boxing. I mean, we should have more of it. More BT fighters against Sky fighters. Brilliant.
Break down the fight for me. See team Joe Joyce, but Joyce-Parker is in the opposite corner. What have you made of Joyce-Parker as a fighter?
I think he's elite. I think he's got elite, certainly for a heavyweight, elite hand speed. I think he's durable, never been stopped. Very tough opponent for Joe Joyce. I think Joe's elite qualities are his chin and his endurance, and I think this fight will be won in the later rounds 9 to 12. I mean, you know, early on in the fight, Joe is traditionally quite a slow starter. When you watch him against Dubois, he wasn't such a slow starter. When you have someone of this level come against Joe, I think he'll be switched on right from the get-go. I think it'll be very close going into the 9th, 10th round. I see it as being very close getting into those rounds, and Joe Joyce just kind of edging ahead and stopping him late.
And a fantastic position for the winner, finding themselves in an elevated position and potentially, well, be the mandatory for the winner of Usyk AJ2 too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Joe Joyce already has that position, so we're not gaining anything from this fight in that sense. But it's a brilliant, big heavyweight fight, and I think the heavyweight division, that's what it's all about. Big fights. I mean, Derek Chisora sells out arenas and headlines fights with 13 losses. In the heavyweight division, people want big, exciting fights, and this is a massive, exciting fight, like right now. Is there a big prize at the end of it for Joe? Yeah, of course. It's kind of credibility, notoriety, his first proper pay-per-view. But he's already in that mandatory position, so this is a big risk for Joe Joyce. He's risking his number one position against an elite fighter that's never been stopped.
Adam, that's the question I was going to ask you. Pay-per-view. People always question whether a fight is worth a pay-per-view. Do you have any qualms on that side? I imagine you don't.
No, I don't. I mean, listen, whenever you have a fighter like Joe Joyce who's coming over to pay-per-view for the first time, people are always going to question that. But if you look at, say, the second half of this year, from August onwards, in the heavyweight division, I think after Joshua Usyk, which is happening in Saudi, I think this is the biggest fight in the heavyweight division in the second half of the year after Joshua Usyk. So I don't have any qualms about it. Yeah, there's going to be other big fights. There's Triple G, Canelo's, huge fights all over the place. But in the United Kingdom, heavyweight fights, second half of the year, it's huge.
Can you talk me through any further machinations of the deal? We know that there's a rematch clause that if Joe Joyce was to lose, he'd fight over on Sky Sports. But what about in terms of the judging panel? Has Joe requested maybe a specific judging panel at all?
No, we haven't. We haven't done that with judges. Believe it or not, that was the one thing we didn't actually argue about, was judges. But yeah, there's a one-way rematch clause, which as a manager, I would be remiss in not ensuring was in there. Same with the promoter. When you come to something with a big prize, we've worked, 4 or 5 years for the WBO number one spot. If Joe has a bad day at the office, we need a bit of insurance there. But, some people might look at that and think, oh, you're not confident. And Joe-Parker, earlier when they were doing the gloves are off, was saying, I'm confident, I don't need a rematch clause. That's not how it works. When you're the A side going into the fight, which for this fight, Joe is, I appreciate he's not been a world champion like Joe-Parker, but for this fight, he is. When you're the A side, you get the rematch clause.
Adam, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to Box Social. Much appreciated. All the best. Thank you.